Hey guys! I'm here to help you figure out what schools you want to apply to. I just graduated from high school last May, and I remember last summer I was so overwhelmed because I didn't know what colleges I wanted to apply to, so hopefully some of these tips can help you. One of the first things you want to take into consideration is how many schools you would be comfortable with applying to. I personally applied to 6 because I thought that was a good amount so I could get some reach schools and some safety schools and some schools I would actually be comfortable with going to. And something that you have to keep in mind is that each application for college has an application fee. Now don't stress too much. If you have any financial stress that you can't afford applying to all of these colleges, you can have your fees waived if you contact the colleges. And I know some colleges have special ways like going to their orientation or something, and that'll help you waive their application fee as well. So those are some things that you want to take into consideration. Something else you want to think about is the size of the school and how far away is it from your home. Now that's all up to personal preference and what you're really comfortable with. If you live on the East Coast, you have to ask yourself, are you comfortable with moving to the West Coast to go to school, and will that work out financially? Because you also have to take into consideration that you'll be having to fly out from the West Coast to East Coast if you want to come home for Thanksgiving break or winter break or even summer break. With size, that's also has to do with how you feel comfortable with learning the material. Do you feel more comfortable in a setting that is smaller, where there are only like 20 kids in the class and the professor really gets to know you as an individual? Or are you okay with being in a big lecture where you might not even get to know your professor? Now, it's okay to go into college undecided, but if you do know what you want to do, you also have to make sure, does this school have the program or major that I'm interested in? Because if you want to go into engineering and the school doesn't even have an engineering school, you probably shouldn't be applying there. Another important factor is how expensive the school is. That's something you'll probably want to talk about with your parents or whoever is helping you figure out how to pay for your school. In-state schools are generally more cheaper than out-of-state schools. Public universities can sometimes be a lot cheaper than private universities, but what I've found is that private universities are also more willing to give money, as in scholarships, to applicants to help them want to go to their university, basically. So I don't want to discourage you from applying to out-of-state schools or private schools, because there are different ways that you can get money and scholarships to help you go to those schools if those are the schools that you really want to go to. Another tip I have is having at least 1 or 2 safety schools and 1 or 2 reach schools. You can have more safety schools or more reach schools, but it just kind of helps you fall back on something if you don't get into the schools that you want to get into, or even see if you are able to get into those reach schools. When you want to determine what schools you think you will get into, because I know a lot of friends of mine didn't know what schools they could get into, one thing I found helpful was going to either collegeboard.com or collegeapps.about.com, and those can help you figure out what kind of applicants get into each of those schools. For example, they'll tell you the mid-range of the SAT or ACT scores, which is something that you'll probably have to take to get into these colleges, and what the GPA kind of looks like, but also take into consideration that your SAT scores and your GPA is not everything, and that colleges will also look at you holistically as a student to see if you're well-rounded and what activities you participate in, and your essays. So don't get taken aback by SAT scores or what GPA you should have. Don't let them hold you back from applying to a school if you really want to get into that school. At least put yourself out there so you can live your life with no regret. Now, I know this whole process can be really intimidating and overwhelming, but I promise you, you will be able to do it. It's all just something that we have to go through, and you'll be able to persevere and make it through. And I wish you the best of luck for your senior year, and try not to get too lazy with your senioritis, because I know I did and that was not fun. So best of luck.